Hey everyone, so today's video is gonna be a realistic wish list video, and I do like to do these about every 6 months or so just because the products on my wish list do change every so often. So basically in this video I'm going to be going through each category of makeup, and I tried to choose one product for each category. Some of them have two products, but not a lot of them. Most of them is just one product per category, and this is going to be the products that I see myself purchasing next in these categories. That's not to say that I'm going to purchase all these products soon, because obviously my makeup inventory in some categories is higher than other categories. So I'll also go over that a little bit when I actually see myself purchasing these products as we go through each category. So let's just go ahead and start with the first category. And I did do this in order of how I would apply makeup to my face. So the first category is primer. So my sort of number one primer right now at the top of my wish list is the Good Molecules Moisturizing Primer. This has been on my wish list for quite a while. I just haven't gone ahead and purchased it yet. I do go through primers relatively quickly. I have just sort of gotten distracted by other newer primers that I've tried out before this one, but this is the next one that I have in mind to purchase after I finish off a couple of the other primers that I already have in my collection. I'll probably finish off one more in my collection and then purchase this primer. I believe I have maybe 3 or 4 primers in my collection right now, but one of them is more so a pore filling primer, which I don't really use. So you'll see coming up in my decluttering series, if I end up decluttering that one, I kind of am thinking of decluttering that one because I just don't use pore filling primers. But once I finish off another one of the hydrating primers in my collection, I most likely will purchase this one from Good Molecules. And then we have foundation, and there are quite a few foundations I want to try, specifically more so skin tints and lighter coverage foundations. I put on this list for sort of my number one, I actually have two. The first one that came to mind is the Flower Beauty Get Real Serum Foundation. And then I also thought of the Ordinary Serum Foundation. So clearly they're both serum foundations, so they may be relatively similar, but both of these have been on my wish list for a really long time. The Flower Beauty one is a little bit newer, so the Ordinary one I've wanted to try since I basically discovered the Ordinary, which was a while ago. Whereas the Flower Beauty Serum Foundation I've been wanting to try pretty much since it came out, and I have heard really great reviews about it, and I've heard great things about both of these foundations. So the Ordinary one is also half the price of the Flower Beauty one. So just depending on what I feel like, or maybe where I feel like ordering from, if I already need some skincare from the Ordinary, I may end up purchasing the Ordinary Serum Foundation, but I also don't see myself purchasing another foundation for a pretty long time. I do have a few foundations in my collection already, obviously, and some of them are a little bit fuller coverage that I don't tend to reach for, but I don't have a ton of lighter coverage foundations. I have accumulated a few, but once I go through probably another foundation, I definitely want to finish off a couple more before I end up purchasing any more foundations, so I don't see myself buying these anytime soon. Next up, we have concealer, and I do have maybe 3 or 4 concealers in my collection right now, but concealers are products that I go through relatively quickly just because if I'm applying makeup, I'm applying concealer, so I do use them very regularly. There are quite a few concealers on my wish list, but the one right now that is at the top of my wish list is the Catrice True Skin High Cover Concealer. And I heard about this from a YouTuber, I don't remember who mentioned it, but they said that it was a dupe for the Kosas concealer, which is my favorite concealer. So I definitely want to try out this Catrice concealer. And you'll notice on this list, there are quite a few more drugstore products. I feel like last year I purchased more high-end products. I was on a no-buy, so I didn't purchase a ton of makeup, but the products that I did purchase were definitely more high-end, more on the expensive side. So this year I want to try to balance out my collection and bring in some more drugstore products to try, because there are definitely a lot of drugstore products that I want to try. There's also more high-end products that I want to try, but I do want to try to purchase some more drugstore to sort of balance out my collection and just try some more drugstore products, because I feel like you can still find really good products for an inexpensive price. But with this Catrice concealer, it is relatively new. I haven't heard a ton about it, but I have heard some good reviews about it. So this is sort of on the top of my wish list right now in the concealer category, mostly because I heard that it was a dupe for the Kosas concealer. So I really just want to try it out for myself, see if it is similar. And even if it's not the same, I could still really like this concealer. And it would be really good to try a more drugstore concealer, because I feel like recently I have tried a couple more high-end concealers, but I probably won't end up purchasing this one for a while. I do definitely want to finish off a couple more concealers in my collection before I purchase any more, which is kind of how it is for a lot of these categories. Next up is powder, and powder is a category where I've had so many in my collection for so long because I just can't seem to get through a whole powder. Today, for example, I didn't even set my face. I don't have any powder, at least like setting powder on my face right now. So powder is a product that I just haven't really been using a lot recently, and when I do use powder, I usually just set the center of my face where I tend to get oily. So I'm not using a ton of powder, therefore I'm not really going through the powders in my collection. And I had previously sort of collected a lot of powders, and I don't really want to declutter any. I'd rather just use them up. So the one powder that I would really like to try once I finish off a lot of the powders that I have is the No. 7 Lift and Luminate powder. And this has been raved about, I feel like, by so many different people. It's sort of known to be a dupe for higher end luxury powders. So that is really the only powder that I'm excited to try, and definitely the next one that I'm going to purchase, except I don't see myself purchasing this anytime soon, let alone in 2022, because I haven't finished off any powders in so long. I am pretty close to finishing one or two, but I just haven't been able to finish them off. And I do have, I think, about like 6 or 7 powders in my collection that I still want to get through before I purchase any more. Next up, we have bronzers. There were a couple that came to mind in this category. My bronzer inventory isn't too out of hand. I do have about like 7 or 8 powder bronzers, and I think only like 3 cream bronzers. So I'm happy with my cream bronzers. My powder bronzers, however, I would like to finish them off before I purchase any more. But the next one I'm thinking of purchasing is either the Thrive Cosmetics Sun Chaser bronzing powder, which I have heard really great things about, and I think I will like the lightest shade in this bronzer, because I find with bronzers, a lot of companies, they're getting better now, but they tend to come out with like one bronzer shade that's sort of like a universal shade. I like that Thrive Cosmetics has a decent range in their bronzer, and I do want to try their lightest bronzer because a lot of the bronzers I have are relatively deep for my skin tone. So I've been wanting to get into trying some more lighter bronzers that are actually created for my skin tone. So Thrive Cosmetics has definitely been on my wish list for a pretty long time, especially that bronzer. I do also want to try a lot of other things from Thrive. But the other bronzer that I'm thinking of purchasing is the Nabla Skin Glazing bronzer, specifically in the shade Ambra, which I believe is their lightest shade. And these two bronzers are pretty different formulas, at least from what I've heard. The Thrive Cosmetics one is matte, so it doesn't have any shimmer or glow running through it. The Nabla bronzers are pretty glowy, I think. So it's obviously a skin glazing bronzer, so it is going to be a lot more glowy. So these are just two very different formulas. So depending on kind of what I'm wanting will depend on which one of these I end up purchasing first. Next up for highlight, we have the same Nabla Skin Glazing highlighter in the shade specifically Privilege. I do want to try the Nabla cheek products so badly, and they've been on my wish list for so long. So I do kind of have a feeling once the Ulta 21 Days of Beauty rolls around, if these are on sale, I will just end up picking up the bronzer, highlighter, and blush. So this brings me to the next category. For blush, again, my number one on the top of my wish list right now is the Nabla Skin Glazing blush. Initially, I specifically wanted to try the shade Lola, but then I started hearing everyone talk about these blushes, and I'm kind of going back and forth between shades. So if you do have any of the Skin Glazing blushes, let me know what your favorite shade is down below in the comments. I think I will end up purchasing Lola, at least to begin with. There are a couple shades I'm sort of bouncing between. I don't remember what they're called, but it's all like the more nude type of shades. But I specifically have heard Lola hyped up a lot, and that's kind of the original shade that I heard of that was really great and a lot of people really love. And I feel like it's also more of a unique shade to my collection, so I most likely will end up purchasing that shade. But I do definitely want to try the Nabla Skin Glazing formula, and I can't really pick one. Like, I feel like I can't really just buy the blush in this formula. I really want to try the bronzer, highlighter, and blush. So this year I may end up purchasing all three of those, even though I really don't need any more blushes in my collection or highlighters, but I might be a little more savage with my highlighter declutter. So I see myself not worrying too much about bringing in 1 or 2 highlighters this year. And blushes, I don't really want to increase, but it's a product that I've really wanted for a long time, and I figured if I'm gonna be buying the highlighter and bronzer, I may as well just buy the blush as well that I've wanted for so long and wanted to try for so long. And it's also a more unique shade to my collection, so I am okay with purchasing all three of these. At least that's how I'm feeling right now. Next up, for eyeshadow palette, this was another tricky one. I do have 2. One is sort of like a bonus type of mention. I don't know if I will end up purchasing it, but at the top of my list right now is the Natasha Denona Retro palette. This has been on my list pretty much since it came out and since I heard reviews about it. I wanted this for a really long time, and I may end up purchasing it this year. I may end up getting it as a gift. I'm not really sure how it's going to come into my collection, but I do foresee this coming into my collection at some point this year. Obviously, I have quite a few eyeshadow palettes. I don't need a ton, but again, there are some palettes in my collection that I'm already thinking of decluttering because I just don't use them and I don't like the color stories. So stay tuned for all of my declutters for all of these different categories to kind of get a more detailed look into my collection and the products that I have in my collection. The other palette is from Oden's Eye, and I've been wanting to try Oden's Eye for so long. I've heard such great things about their eyeshadows and even all of their other products. Initially, I was thinking of purchasing, and I had on my wish list a bunch of their more neutral palettes like the Alba palette, the Soul Main palette, which is now sold out or it's discontinued, which is kind of sad, but I don't really want to bring as many sort of very neutral everyday wearable tones into my collection, which sounds kind of counterintuitive because those are the shades that I wear every day. But now I'm looking to add to my collection really unique palettes and and also products that will actually add value to my collection and be unique in my collection. So I really want the Elva 2. I don't know if this is just like something I'm lusting after right now, and in the future it won't really end up on my wish list or end up in my collection, but I do really want the Elva 2 eyeshadow palette. I'm thinking of purchasing this sort of as like a spring palette and a spring sort of gift to myself. So I may purchase this at the end of winter when we get into sort of spring, summer, because obviously these shades are a lot brighter and out there, but they're also shades that I don't have anything like in my collection. Like every single one of these shades I feel like is so unique to my collection, so I feel like it would really add something. And just looking at this palette right now, it really excites me thinking of bringing it into my collection. So I may save that one for spring just because in the winter I know I won't really be wearing those colors. And then I also decided to include the category of single eyeshadows just because I've been getting more into single shadows and just sort of exploring the different brands that have singles, specifically indie brands. So one brand that I do really want to try is Give Me Glow, specifically their Money Moves bundle. So this is a little quad and it's basically like a green quad, and I've been wanting to try green shadows for a pretty long time. And I did recently purchase the Essence Dancing Green palette, but that one turned out to be a little bit more blue than I was thinking. And this Money Moves bundle from Give Me Glow is like pure green, like true green shades. They definitely don't lean blue, so it's a lot different to anything that I have in my collection. So I'm really excited to bring these into my collection. I feel like I may end up purchasing them maybe next month, or I guess this month when you're seeing this video. But in the month of February, I do see myself bringing these into my collection. At least that's what I'm thinking right now. I'm not really sure how my purchases are going to go this year. I'm thinking of sort of keeping it to like one makeup purchase per month. So I'm not really going overboard, but I'm still sort of allowing myself and giving myself the freedom to purchase makeup. Next up, we have mascara. Again, there was a couple mascaras that come to mind, and there are a bunch of mascaras that I do want to try, both drugstore and some higher end, at least more mid-range mascaras, because I feel like high-end mascaras aren't necessarily worth it. I feel like you can find good mascaras at the drugstore. And I feel like with mascara, it's either like a hit or miss. So you can buy a bunch of high-end mascaras and not like any of them. Whereas, like, obviously I don't want to spend that much money on mascaras on something I know I won't necessarily like. So I do prefer to purchase drugstore mascaras, but one mascara that has been on my wish list forever is the Thrive Cosmetics Lash Extensions Mascara. This has been hyped up so much. It is a tubing mascara, and I don't think I've ever tried a tubing mascara before, so I'm really interested to try a formula like this. It is a little bit more on the high-end, mid-range price tag, but I would be willing to pay the money for this mascara just because I really do want to try Thrive Cosmetics, and they seem like a good brand to support anyways, so I don't mind that it's a little bit more expensive. Another mascara that I'm also interested in is the Makeup Geek Extension Effect Mascara, and this is relatively new. I haven't heard anyone talk about it. I feel like no one talks about Makeup Geek anymore, and this is half the price of the Thrive Cosmetics mascara. So Marlene Estelle is the creator of Makeup Geek, and I saw her video on this mascara, and she demonstrated it and everything, and it looked really amazing. And obviously it's her own product, so she's kind of going to talk it up, but I do believe in her sort of opinion and her creation of makeup. Like, all the makeup I've tried from Makeup Geek, I've really loved. I would like to support their brand and try this mascara. It is like a drugstore price, so it's a pretty good deal. So I think this will be the next mascara I end up purchasing from Makeup Geek because I feel like it's a little bit more underrated and less hyped than the Thrive Cosmetics lash extension, and also Thrive Cosmetics is double the price, so I'd rather just try. I think it is a tubing mascara as well, so I feel like it's pretty similar, at least from what I can tell and what I see. It's pretty similar to the Thrive Cosmetics one, so I'm actually really excited to try the Makeup Geek Extension Effect Mascara. That is probably most likely the one I will end up purchasing next, but I do have a couple backups in my collection just ready to go when my other couple mascaras that I have open run out, and they are sort of close to running out. They're getting a little bit more dry, so I do still have a couple backups to go through, so I don't see myself purchasing another mascara for a couple months. Next up, we have brows, and I recently got into brow pens. I did use a brow pen on my eyebrows today, as well as just a clear brow gel. So what you're seeing, the color at least, is mostly just a brow pen, and I do really like the effect that it gives. I feel like I get a lot more of a natural, fluffy brow with the brow pen, and at first I wasn't really sure. I had to get a little bit used to using the brow pen because it was just different than a pencil, obviously, but I have really fallen in love with it recently. And the brow pen that I have is the Milani Weekend brow pen, but that one doesn't have a very extensive shade range. I feel like the shade was a little bit too warm for me. I feel like it's an okay match now and it looks okay on camera, but initially I thought it was a little bit too warm. I feel like it matches my brows okay, but the NYX Lift and Snatch Brow Tint Pen has a wider selection of colors, so I think after I finish off my Milani one, I'm going to move on to the NYX one just to see if I can find a better shade match. And obviously I'm new to brow pens, so I do want to try out a few and see which one is my favorite. And then I also put on here a clear brow gel because nowadays I've pretty much only been using like a brow tint pen and or a pencil and then putting on a clear brow gel just to sort of set my brows down. I don't necessarily want to add more color after I've filled them in. So I want to try out the Makeup Revolution Good Vibes Clear Brow Gel. And this is, again, a drugstore product, so I'm leaning more towards drugstore products, I feel like, this year. I just would like to try some more drugstore brands and products. I haven't purchased much from Makeup Revolution, if anything. I don't currently have anything in my collection from them, I don't think. I'm pretty sure. So I would really like to try their clear brow gel and also just get more into their brand and more into drugstore brands in general. Next up, we have lip products, and for this one I didn't necessarily choose one like from each lip category, but I chose one lip pencil, and that is the M Cosmetics lip liner. I don't know what the specific name of them is. I think it's like the Blur something blurring lip liner, and I've heard really great things about them. I'm not sure like what shade specifically I want to try. If you tried the Cosmetics lip liners, let me know what your favorite shade is down below. I feel like the hardest part when trying new products and also ordering online is picking out the shade. But the Cosmetics lip liners are definitely ones that I do want to try out, and I am interested in some other Cosmetics products as well. But their lip liners do really intrigue me, just the fact that they're sort of blurring and they have that claim to them. And I've also heard really great things from pretty much everyone I've heard use them really likes them. And then I have more so a lipstick tinted lip balm type of product I want to try out is the e.l.f. Hydrating Core Lip Shine. So obviously this is sort of like a tinted lip balm that's also really hydrating. I feel like it's going to be just like a hydrating lipstick. I'm not sure how pigmented these are. I feel like you can obviously build them up to get them pretty pigmented, but there are quite a few just like tinted lip balms that I do want to try. This is one that just stood out to me, again going along with trying more drugstore products. This one is definitely one that is at the top of my list. And then lastly, we have setting spray, and I don't use setting spray a ton. I like a more glowy setting spray. I don't necessarily use it for longevity to set my makeup down. I like to use it more so to melt the products into my skin and to make my skin maybe a little bit more glowy. So I am currently using the Colourpop Hydrating Hyaluronic Acid Setting Mist, whatever that one's called, the Pretty Fresh one. And I've been using that for a while. I did end up repurchasing it, but I no longer purchased from Colourpop. So I'm trying to find sort of a similar setting spray. And the one that I've heard is similar to that is the e.l.f. Glow Dewy Mist, which comes in the pink bottle. I will pop a picture up on screen so you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about. But I do want to try this out. I did hear that it was similar to the Colourpop one, so I'm really, really excited to try this as my next setting spray. This is definitely one that's been at the top of my list for a while now, because once I heard that it was similar to the Colourpop one, I immediately sort of added it to the top of my list and just kept it in the back of my mind as the next one that I want to try. There are also a lot of other setting sprays that I want to try, but this one is sort of the next one because I've heard it is so similar to the Colourpop setting spray. So that is it for all of the makeup products in each category that are at the top of my wish list. Let me know some products that you guys have in mind that are at the top of your guys' wish list, or that you think you are going to purchase next, because I really love hearing what products you guys are interested in as well. And if you did enjoy this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. I do post new videos 3 times a week, so if you want to see more from me, make sure to subscribe and don't forget to hit that bell icon to get notified every time I post. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.